JD here on Saturday morning, and guess where I am? I'm at Sanctuary Cove on the Gold Coast. And for any of you that may have been to the Gold Coast, you'd know that Sanctuary Cove has a pretty exclusive shopping village. And that shopping village these days is a far cry from what it was many, many years ago. And the reason is because of lack of marketing. And the reason I'm doing this post is because if you're a business owner, you do not want to do what Sanctuary Cove has done over the years in terms of marketing their village, which is, guess what? Nothing. Okay, let me just show you how busy Sanctuary is, or rather how not busy it is. There's a delivery truck, of course, on cue, but if you look down the street here, it is completely empty, just about. And of course, the post office really has to look at their design. This is a post office there, by the way. Have a look at the shop frontage, which is the most important real estate you can have, and they've got mailboxes outside, like a mile of them. This is Sanctuary Cove. And I want to tell you a story because some years back I was invited to actually meet with the developers and give them some ideas to see if they could fill the streets here, the empty streets on Sanctuary Cove. And I'll come back to me so that it's all about me, by the way. Anyway, I met with them here at Sanctuary Cove, and I said to them, well, listen, you're the best kept secret on the Gold Coast. You are like an incredible little shopping village of restaurants and fashion boutiques and all this sort of stuff, but you're not telling anyone. Other than the Japanese tourists that come here, no one locally on the Gold Coast knows what Sanctuary Cove's village is all about. And they said, what would you do? I said, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'll swing around here so you can actually see how empty the street is as I'm talking. I'm leaning over the balcony, by the way. I'm risking my life for this Facebook Live for you. I'm upstairs, okay? I didn't want to go downstairs because if I'm bagging Sanctuary Cove's management out, there's every chance someone will come up with a machete. And I said to the Sanctuary Cove management at the time, the lady who I spoke to has now left, and I said to her, look, if you want to fill the streets here at Sanctuary Cove, it's really easy. And she said, well, how? I said, why don't you have things like the boat show? And she said, what do you mean? I said, every year you have an international boat show that gets 52,000 people. For many years they never collected any data, by the way, so they had no idea who was coming. Another pet favourite subject of mine, dickheads. And so therefore I said, listen, why don't you have, if you've had a success with an international boat show, then in my world, I would take a lesson out of that and go, hang on, Sanctuary Cove, upmarket people are coming to see boats. Why don't we actually have an international car show, a prestige car show, where we'd have Lamborghinis, we'd have Mercedes and so forth? And she said, oh, okay. And I said, better still, then why don't you have maybe an Oktoberfest in the main street? You see the street's empty in that street. Why don't you have an Oktoberfest? Why don't you have an orchid festival? Why don't you have festivals that are going to attract people and theme the thing? You've had a boat show that's worked like forever, so why don't you wake up to yourself and just mirror the boat show with other upmarket festivals? And I don't know whether she was hard of hearing or she just thought I was BS, but nothing was getting through. And then I gave her the piece de resistance. Wait till you hear this one. I said, well, why don't you actually make it snow during the winter months? So therefore, winter's not so bad on the Gold Coast, but we get a couple of months of winter. It might be, June and July. Why don't you help the restaurants in the evening and make it snow? She said, how would you do that? I said, I'm God. I can do that sort of stuff. Anyway, she was not getting my humour. I think she thought I was a dickhead, and she was just tough work. And I said to her, no, make it snow. I said, there's a company in Melbourne that actually creates biodegradable bubbles that they would, basically burst out of the top floor. So, for example, where I'm here at the moment, I'm on the top floor of one of the shops in Sanctuary Cove. So, therefore, you would have cannons pumping out this biodegradable soap suds, and it's exactly what Disneyland does. Disneyland does this in Christmas. They basically pump out in the main street of Disneyland biodegradable soap suds, so there's no cleaning up. It's not like confetti. And so therefore they hit the ground, they disappear, but everyone's there with their cameras because it snows in Disneyland at Christmas time. It was like talking to a brick wall. She's going, I don't understand. I said, of course you don't, because you're a moron. And so anyways, it turned out, and then I said, what about $1 million giveaway, which I could get the $1 million from the insurance company for 16 grand. And what we do is a letterbox drop right around the Gold Coast to every single home and invite them to one of these big street festivals at Sanctuary Cove. And for the chance to win $1 million, they would actually go and put their entry that they got in the letterbox with their name and details, of course, into a barrel, and we'd make sure the barrel was down the back of Sanctuary Cove, so they had to walk past all the restaurants and boutiques. And can you imagine what would happen then? Because at the end of that month-long promotion, you'd draw someone, and then they would pick an envelope out of $250 for the chance to win $1 million. That's how those insured promotions work. Do you know, she looked at me like I came from Mars. I'm risking my life, by the way, leaning over this for you, so you can get some good content out of this. And anyway, as it's turned out, at the end of that, she said to me, and I'll tell you how this came about. I had a client who was a restaurant in Sanctuary Cove, and they were bitching and moaning about the fact there was nobody here. Like now, look at this, empty streets. And so they arranged this meeting with the management of Sanctuary Cove. And so at the end of it, she said to me, yeah, look, you've got a few good ideas there. A few. What have you been smoking in the last 1 hour whilst I've been here with you, you stupid woman? Anyways, it's turned out she said to me, you know what? All good ideas, but what we'll do is that we'll work on filling the empty shops, because there was plenty of them, before we actually start that stuff. How do you spell stupid? I said to her, don't you realise if you bring people in here, you won't have any empty shops. You'll have people wanting to open up restaurants and boutiques. And again, I don't know why I'm sounding like Seinfeld. I guess it's frustration. I'm going to flip the camera again and just show you how empty this place is. It is a ghost town, okay? This is Sanctuary Cove on the Gold Coast. It should be jammed, and there are tumbleweeds just coming down the street. It's just so sad. I could turn this place into a bustling village, because that's what it's called, the Sanctuary Cove Village. I could turn this into a bustling village within a month. I could have this place absolutely just screaming with people. It is so easy if you understand good marketing, and these people just have no clue. So anyway, look, I just thought I would bitch and moan. It's a Saturday morning and I'm feeling in a bad mood, so I thought, who can I pick on? And my wife and myself came here for coffee. There's a lovely little coffee shop here, so if you're a coffee sort of snob like we are, then you will come here. But you can see not too many people are doing the same thing as we are. So I said to Gail, my wife, look, you go and sit in the car. I want to rant for about 5 minutes about what I believe is the lack of marketing savvy of the Sanctuary Cove people. It's such a shame. This could be a tourist mecca like it once was. Do you realise that this was opened? Sanctuary Cove was opened about 25 years ago by Frank Sinatra and Whitney Houston. And I'm sure they've been looking down from upstairs at the moment. Well, Frank, I don't know whether he'll be upstairs, but Whitney would be, going, oh, dearie me, what a shame. It's just not the same anymore, is it? It's empty. Okay, well, look, hopefully you enjoyed that. Kerry's on. Kerry, yeah, Francesco. G'day, Kerry, how are you? Good to hear you. Good to see you. And Greg Mackay, mate, Magic, right, good to see you too. I'm happy now. I've had my bitch and moaning. But look, the thing is that I guess the lesson to be learned out of this, as far as Sanctuary Cove is concerned, is that theming. They have a boat show once a year that brings in 50,000 people, and they haven't learned anything from it. Surely to goodness they'd have half a brain and go, you know what, why don't we have a prestige car show with Rolls Royces and Mercedes, because that will bring in the right audience as well. Why don't we have an orchid festival? Why don't we have a beer and wine fest? Why don't we have an international food festival? Why don't we have, let me see, I'm just trying to think another one. Well, Oktoberfest. Why don't we have Oktoberfest? There's so many festivals that they could be having, but they're just not. And it's just lazy thinking and not thinking outside the square marketing-wise. Thanks for all the love hearts and the likes. Goodness me, I've set the thing alight this morning. I'm going to do more of these on Saturday morning. Looks like you people have got nothing to do but just watch stuff. Oh, shaky cam. I'm sorry about that. Okay, look, I'm out of here. And you know why it's shaky cam? Because I asked Gail this morning to give me a double shot long black, because she's my official orderer of coffee. I've got people. And she didn't get double shot. That's why it's shaking like this. You see, I had a few drinks last night, and so therefore, yeah, it's coming back to bite me this morning. Okay, g'day George, welcome on board. And Denise, hey Denise, it's nice to see you. It's been a while between drinks. You ought to come back and live with us again, because not that for anyone watching this, Denise actually lived with us, but she was part of our program, and we'd love to see you back, Denise, because yeah, boy, we've got some great ideas for your industry that we've been giving to some other people. So, you know, come back, show the love. But show the love right now by pressing the like button, if you don't mind. And if you think this has been valuable, then please send it to a friend who owns a business. And if you think it's been a waste of time, send it to someone who you hate and waste their time as well. Okay, guys, I'll tell you where I'm off to. I'm off to Surfers Paradise, because I just read in the paper this morning that someone with half a brain decided to rejuvenate the little crappy arcade next to the Hilton Hotel at Orchid Avenue, and they've turned it into, guess what, a themed Asian precinct, and called it Chop Chop. I only read about that in the paper this morning. What a fantastic idea, and I thought that would be a good Facebook Live. I'm hooked on this Facebook Live thing, by the way. It's become a disease. So you might be hearing from me in about an hour's time about Chop Chop. See you later, guys. Have a good weekend.